since it's the anniversary of the flood, what I figured I'd do is go over some of these great pictures that show what happened and some things that we shouldn't forget, as the chairman often mentions. So this was the first flood in 2007 that many people don't remember, and that was the first time that the Borman was shut down. For some of you veterans here that come to these events, you'll notice some of these familiar pictures. The next one here, and I have that pointer here someplace, right? Anyways, we'll start from the right about how we've addressed issues. This was brought up from 2008. Starting on the right, I-65, I-80, INDOT built flood walls there in 2012 that now protects that area, along with the area that is highlighted under Borman Expressway. The Indiana University problem was a result of the culverts that were inside, or the manholes that were inside the river, that this commission addressed by building out those containers with the vents that will now hopefully prevent that from tipping and causing it to flow underneath the levee. Harrison Street is being designed right now, so we will raise that up next year, so that will no longer be an issue. Grant Street is the only issue currently that we haven't corrected on this sheet because of the fact that Grant Street we need to raise, and that's an expensive proposition, but by correcting all these others, if we have just one to deal with, it's a lot more manageable. The bottom left is 35th and Chase, which by next year we will have built an overpass, so there will no longer be the need for human intervention there with those posts and panels and people losing parts. And then the Chase Street up on the top left is the area that INDOT built the permanent, semi-permanent wall to prevent flooding from occurring over there. So we do address the problems as we see them and as they were outlined in this report from the 2008 flood, which is now the other second part of Kennedy Avenue closing. And if you remember, that was closed for 5+ days. And Columbia Avenue Bridge, which in 2012 we cooperated in partnership with the city of Hammond, Munster, and the county to raise, so that will no longer need to be a closure, but we will have to monitor the outfalls as it goes down into the river. Just some historical perspective on how much it truly costs as far as damage, and not to even mention some of the personal expenses and trauma that had occurred, and some of the items that we've accomplished since then, including monthly O&M meetings, gone through deferred maintenance. We now have a website that you should all register for us to communicate with you in case we have cancellations of meetings or if we really have to get a hold of you.
Can you go back? Sorry, 2 slides.
Oh boy.
Numbers.
Yep.
Just kind of went through it just fast. I just want to
Sure. These are all the floods of record.
Right. Just wanted to let it soak in.
So 2008, 881 million.
Right, in this small area. What are they talking about in Houston? 11 billion or something? It's only 10 times this, 12 times.
They're saying to replace Houston/Florida, it was 271 billion.
Okay,
Not lost. I mean, this is damages. So this is to build it up in much bigger area that was affected an entire state as opposed to 1-2 counties. I'm just realizing that Cabela's was spelled wrong, but that's just my issue now that I brought it up to my own attention.
it's a lot of money for a small area.
881 million, and that's the issue that we went down to the state with in 2012 and explained to them the ramifications of what this small little river can do. This picture will never leave me and never leave any presentation that I do, because this was a picture taken during the annual inspections in August of 2008. And for someone not to do something about this is painful.
So talk about how many of those culverts they are and how large they are.
Well, I will go because I like to do before and after like you like to see. So this is what it looked like then. And this comes straight from the 2008 inspection report. just so you know if you want to go back and look at it yourself. This is the railroad tracks between Martin Luther King and Georgia, or Virginia. It's near Ironwood. So this is what it's supposed to look like. And that's what it pretty much looks like today. You can see the stain on the wall of how long those logs were staying there, still sitting there against the culverts. So that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what it looked like. So you can figure that one out. You know, when we first started, and this is going back to really when I started in 2010, these were the culverts that were at Chase Street, and they were constantly clogged, and I was told that don't worry, the water will just go over Chase Street and it will keep flowing. So we began in May, I think it was May 3rd, to start unclogging it. That's actually a Gary truck that cleaned them out for us in partnership, and then we ultimately set up a contract, I believe in 11 or 12, to actually remove those culverts completely because of the habitual blocking. Just so that you can see this graph, and I've posted this graph before, you see the big dip there on May 5th. The lowest that the river would ever get at that point, or at the Burr Street station, was 7.5 because of the way that those were constantly blocked. I will tell you that today, if you went to the Burr Street station, the graph should read 4.8, which is even lower than what you can even see on this screen. This was brought on May 5th of 2010. And we've probably only gone over the 7.5, which was the minimum at that time, probably maybe a half a dozen times since I've been here. So you've created, in essence, you know, today is 4.5, so you've created, in essence, 3 feet of storage from Chase going back to Burr and probably further back throughout the entire system. There's another before and after for a good friend who has a bet against me.
It's supposed to be dry, by the way.
And if you haven't seen that, on the left picture that's meant for storage. So in the event that it rains and it can't make it through the system, it's supposed to be stored in the picture where it is. If it doesn't drain, you lose your storage. The right is what it looked like back then. It's greener even now, so it's still dry. That's just off of Clark Road between Clark and Burr. It's our favorite friend here. This is the beaver dam that he built, or in Anthony's case, the badger. I'm sorry. You guys bet against me. I got to take a shot at you. Chase Street closure, which is, as you see all these different components here, Garcia Engineering is going to, or already has completed the up and over, so where those panels are will now be solid, and it will be a road crossing over the top. So we don't need, what is that, a dozen people to construct something in the middle of a rainstorm, during an emergency, and during all the other things that have to go on in the course of flooding. This was a fishing pier, or is a fishing pier still, off of Lake Etta, just off of Clark Road. And this is what it looks like today, now usable. Debris, we've partnered not only with Conservation Mike in the past and Fred and his group, but now Isaac Walton, as you know, has participated in cleanup. And there's that shot, Jeff, for you. Even Jeff's dad got involved in this cleanup. Rolling tires. This is as I mentioned before, the manholes. This was a manhole off of Chase Street. Oh, if I could get this to work, I'll be a great guy. And I do get it to work.
Nice.
I'm bonus coverage. So these are the manholes, and this is what happens when a manhole tips over inside the river.
There's manholes inside of the levees, people.
So the river then finds its way into the manholes and then ultimately into the Gary Sanitary District pump stations, which cause strain on them. And if they happen to go out, guess what happens? People flood. So this one happened just off of Chase Street. This will be fixed here, hopefully within the month. So this is what it looks like after they've been installed with the little vent there above the 200-year flood elevation. And we're doing bike trails. I'm sorry, Tom, I had to put you in this one. Nice scissors. You'll have plenty of ribbon cuttings in the future, so hopefully you guys can join each other again. The before and after this is Marshalltown, the pump station, and what we've fixed it to look like so that it actually works and the erosion doesn't take out the side of the bank. And these are the pump stations that we've done entire rehabilitation on over the course of the last 2 years, spending nearly $1 million fixing the pumps, adding the rock system, which adds stabilization, and adding, there you go, Bill, for your backup generator at the North Burr Station. We've now put together an emergency operations center, which is the Highland Fire Station, where we have central communication, which you'll know or what you've learned hopefully in the last 3 weeks from watching some of these disasters occur in both Texas and Florida. And what we lacked in 2008 was communication to not only the residents but to each other. And now we've centralized those to allow everyone knows what each community is doing at what time and what to expect. And so this is one of those pictures that we took inside. I know it's really boring of 2 large screen TVs, but there's more to it. Just couldn't catch it all in one picture. So in 2010, when I started this job, and when I think most of the board members started, this is what we had as our report card for the levee system. And I can tell you that it is now that. So for the first time since I've started, and probably since this board, that every segment is at least acceptable and considered active. Just so that everyone understands, and I've said it before, there's 3 phases to acceptability. There's completely acceptable, which means you're an A, minimally acceptable, which is like a C, and then not acceptable, which is going back to the red. So you don't get B's or B minuses. It's either fully acceptable or minimally acceptable or unacceptable. So we are, as of, I think it was a week ago, got a letter, thank you, Natalie, from the Army Corps of Engineers stating that all of our levees meet the minimal acceptable rating system, and all of our system is active, and active allows us to, in the event that 10 gallons of water goes into a 5-gallon bucket and something happens to the levee, that we are reimbursable, or it's reimbursable to us, where we are only paying, I believe, 20% of the cost to fix it, and 80% goes to the federal government. Sorry.
So that means that by having that certified, that if there is an event, which we hope in our lifetime never happens again, there's federal funds that are available.
That's correct. So,
whereas under this situation, there was not.
That was not a good situation. So there's the end, and then here are my last 2 pictures of the fire at 35th and Chase, what it looked like. And that's looking to the east, and that is looking to the sort of northeast. So it was a complete loss. And so right now that site is completely clear. That's the 911 tower in the back. And that's it. And I got it to work.
Way to go.
And I'm really happy for myself.
All right, man.
Thank you. Thank you. That was great. I really worked hard on that.